Howdy folks, this is Colton with Crosshair Sheep Farm, and we were just finishing up another section of fence here, and I was wanting to go over our cost-effective corner that we use on this high tensile fence that we're putting in. This is an 1.25 inch fiberglass sucker rod, and it's driven about 3 foot in the ground, and there's 42 inches sticking out of the ground. This is a pressed steel 1 3/8 chain link top rail fitting that has another piece of 1.25 inch sucker rod stuck in it that's going down to another fitting with a brace wire on a floating brace on that rock that's going back and tied back to the bottom, and that creates our tension to hold our corner in place. And then we've got 4 wires on this fence at 8, 14, 20, and 30 inches. And we also, all of our posts have a hole for a 40-inch wire. But so far, for our hair sheep, we haven't had to add that 40-inch wire. But this is a really fast and cost-effective way to get some high tensile fence put in. And we've put some pretty long pulls on these braces like this, and they've held up great. They'll never rot, and they're already insulated, so you don't have to worry about any insulators. We just drill holes at each height that we want, and then put a piece of 12-gauge soft wire in there to hold the wires in place. One thing you do have to do with this sucker rod is you have to keep it painted, or it'll kind of degrade with the UV, and it'll get little hairs off of it, and it'll make everybody itchy that's around them. But this is a great way, especially for us over here on leased land, to get a cost-effective corner in, because if we ever lose this lease or need to move this fence or change something, it's really easy to just pull out with a tractor and take the whole setup and take it somewhere else. We just drive it in with the post pounder. We don't even drill a hole. But I just thought I'd share that cheap way to get this high tensile fence in. And we put these 1/2 inch posts. These are from Premier One. They're sun guard posts. We put those about every 35 feet or so on flat ground. And we just drill, that's a 9/64 hole we drill into each one. And then use the same clips with 12 gauge soft wire. They make clips for these that you can put on there yourselves and not have to drill them, but this is way cheaper to just make your own. I set up a jig in the shop with my drill press to drill all these holes, so it keeps it nice and centered in the post. And I can't get her to focus now, but then you can just go buy a spool of 12-gauge soft wire and make really cheap clips, a lot cheaper than the factory pre-made clips. And then about every 200 feet we'll put in a sucker rod, 1.25 inch sucker rod line post also, just to give the fence some rigidity. And that's where we pull our temporary wires off of, because these, you can pull your spools off of them, but they do get a little flexible, so you have to put a brace on them when you're pulling your temporary spools off. But here's one of our line posts, and that's the same thing. We have a jig set up that we cut them and then pre-drill all the holes in the shop. This one was removed out of another fence that we brought over here, so it needs to be repainted since we pulled it out and have been scratching on it. But like I said, all this fence that we put in was moved off of another section of the farm. We got more lease ground over here, so we basically moved the fence over to this new section, heading back to the timber there. So nothing's very permanent. Everything's easily pulled out with a tractor or a jack. And like I said, if we ever need to move this fence or lose this lease, we can pull all the posts out and roll up the wire and move it somewhere else. That's what we did over here. But I just want to share this cost-effective way to put in some high tensile fence. But y'all have a good day.